Do you ever feel one crisis from crazy? Well, our guest tonight is here to share some tips on what to do if you feel that way. She's a motivational speaker and she's actually writing a book called One Crisis from Crazy. She is an amazing, dynamic woman who is also interim CEO of Planned Parenthood of Greater New York. She's one of my favorite people because she's so dynamic and energetic, and I always learn new things from her. Her name is Joy D. Calloway. Welcome, Joy.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. You are one of my absolute favorite people, so the mutual love fest has begun. Thanks for having me.
Whoa! So you are the perfect guest here on the Goddess Power Show. I'm Elizabeth Ann Atkins, Joy D. Calloway. We are going to lay it out right now. She's going to share her tips. Can you not even imagine what she's going to say? One crisis from crazy. I mean, so powerful. And if you see her speak, you'll just be captivated. So, Joy, let's do this.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you. I figure probably the best way to start is to answer the question that people often ask me. What does that mean? What does it mean to be one crisis from crazy? Right. And so I explain to people that this is my passion project. This is my heart. You know that I'm into healthcare administration and I speak and I write, but this concept of understanding what it means to be everything to everyone else, looking fabulous, showing up fabulous. When I work with women's groups, I say we've got the right house, the right husband, the right heels, the right handbag. And yet, with all of that, as fabulously as we show up, there's something missing, there's something broken, there's something hurting inside. That's one crisis from crazy. I talked with a leadership group the other day, and all of these people who are working in technology, and they have all of these people that look up to them and look to them for guidance and direction and help to move them through their career. This was their time just to be within themselves, and they brought me in to walk them through the One Crisis from Crazy experience. You'd be amazed at how much pain and anguish and depression and stress and anxiety, nervousness are in these people who every day have to show up as if they have all the answers in the world. So One Crisis from Crazy is really, I consider it an experience, dare I say spiritual. It is educational. It is a space that we create where we deal with mental and emotional wellness and distress. It's about being transparent in community. It's about coming from behind the curtain. We talk a lot about The Wiz or The Wizard of Oz, depending on your age group. It's about destigmatizing the conversation. It's about being both fabulous and flawed and being okay with that. It's about toppling the excuses that say, I don't need help, I don't need to talk to anybody, I'm okay. It is really, and it's still May, right? It's still May, National Mental Health Awareness Month. So we're all saying it, those of us in this work, it's okay not to be okay.
Yes, yes.
And especially in this time we find ourselves, we are in multiple, thankfully we're starting to come out, but we've been in layered pandemics. It's not just about Corona, right? We've been in layered pandemics, and what that does to our psyche and our emotions is challenging. So that's why One Crisis from Crazy is so important to me. And I enjoy just sharing my story. Like I said, it's about transparency. I'm clear, I'm fabulous. And I'm flawed. And in One Crisis from Crazy, in those retreats and those workshops, I'm very open. I share about my challenges that I've had with mental distress. I share about me being in a mental health crisis, and in that moment, what it felt like and what I needed to do to move to the other side of that. And so I could go on and on, but this, listen, that's the basics.
So take us there. You're a CEO, you're very accomplished, you give these wonderful events and speeches. So take us to where you were, that it's always where, in the most difficult times is where we learn the most. So take us there, Joy, please.
So for the first thing that comes to my mind is, while there is an anchor story with One Crisis from Crazy, and I'll share a bit of that, while there is an anchor story, what I have come to realize is that if you do, as my grandmother would say, keep on living, baby. If you keep living, life is going to keep happening. And so crises are just going to show up. Old people used to say, Lord willing and the creek don't rise, right? Anybody, if you have anybody from the South on the line, they were Lord willing and the creek don't rise. And I tell people, you might as well just stick with the first part, depending on where your religious beliefs are. I respect whatever people do or do not believe, because the creek is always going to rise, because the creek is just, it's symbolic of life. Stuff is going to happen. And what we have to do is make sure that we're resilient and we have what's necessary. Just really briefly, because it's a long story and it can get very involved, but I will tell you that in spite of all of the trappings of a successful life, all the trappings we've talked, I'm Go Blue all the way, 3 degrees from the University of Michigan. I've had an awesome elderly parents that were just amazing, a wonderful kid, a hot new husband back in this day, right? All the house in the suburbs with the white picket fence, all of this stuff, all of the trappings, traveling around the world, great friends. And then in September of 2011, life dealt me a blow so crushing that it both figuratively and literally brought me to my knees. Right, I woke up in the middle of my family room floor in the fetal position, because I had unknowingly broken a mother's most sacred trust, and that is to protect her child. And so in this environment, I won't go into great detail, but I will say that there is no pain greater than a mother who has failed to protect her child. And on October 19, 2011, I had just gotten to the edge of my sanity, Elizabeth. And I literally was in the fetal position in the middle of my living room floor. And when I tell that story, and of course, in greater detail in retreat settings, it's just to remind people on the outside looking in, fabulous, fabulous, do that well. And yet, in that moment, had not what I call my church BFF called my house phone in the middle of a workday, so in theory, I shouldn't have been able to answer that phone. Had she not called that phone at that moment, I don't know if I'd be sitting here talking to you today. I saw the edge of my sanity like I see you in that gorgeous Delta red dress.
Thank you.
Just saying, and so in that moment, and there was really a pathway to me becoming a mental and emotional wellness lay advocate. I'm not, a therapist or a psychiatrist, and I don't need to be in order to offer my story and the tools that worked for me. But that was a pivotal moment in my life, in a time where once I moved through that piece and rebuilt myself and reconstituted my child and my family, then I realized at some point this thing of great pain and anguish and shame has to be shared, because there are too many people, and I say this with great humility, there are too many people that look upon me, upon you, upon others like us, and think that all is always well. And that's the furthest thing from the truth.
So, Joy, please share some tips on how you brought yourself back from that edge that other women watching can use.
Sure, absolutely. And in no particular order. And there's a huge toolkit. And one of the first things I tell people is to make sure that you create your coping skills toolkit. You create that bevy of things that you can go to, experiences or people, or whether it's journaling or meditation or yoga or running or weightlifting or Zumba or talking to girlfriends or, going to spa, whatever those things are, those have to be readily available to you. And you have to use them. So it's not just the toolkit itself, because it's almost like being outside in a rainstorm and your umbrella's at the house.
Yes.
So what good are the tools if you don't use them? So again, in no particular order, after that point, the things that brought me out, one was just grace. And I will tell you that grace for myself is still, it's an ongoing therapeutic pathway for me. I am still, when I'm with my therapist, and I'm big on therapy, I have a t-shirt that says Pauline. That's my therapist name. It says Pauline. Because every once in a while I need people who's, I go to therapy, you should too. That is still a place where we have to consider growth for me, is grace for myself. I am, like many professionals, that means allowing myself to make mistakes, to be wrong, to mess up. And I have to continually, just today, washing some clothes that needed to be hung up, the hang dry kind of clothes, right? And so as I was putting the things in the washer, I'm firstborn Capricorn, so I have a system for everything. So I had 2 tops and 4 bottoms. And so in my mind, I knew I needed to bring down to the laundry room 2 top hangers and 4 bottom hangers. When I went down after the alarm goes off, I went down, I had 4 top hangers and 2 bottom hangers. No big deal, right? Okay, so whatever, I got caught up and switched it in my head, whatever. And I started to go, oh, that was so stupid. I had to, yes, as fabulous as I am. So I say that to say, so little moments like that, I'm training myself to offer myself grace, the ability to be wrong, to mess up, and it not tarnish my fabulosity.
Oh, fabulosity. I love that. That is so powerful.
So grace was the first thing. Grace was definitely the first piece. Life happens, things happen, and no one intentionally, no one in their right mind, because I did work in mental health for many years, no mother in their right mind wakes up in the morning and says, I am choosing not to protect my child today. And so that was the first piece, that grace and that forgiveness of myself. And that is an ongoing, that's an exercise in that forgiveness about that whole situation. And so I would start there. That's the first thing. And it doesn't have to be something of that gravity, but listening to ourselves and listening to how we speak to ourselves.
Yes.
I mean, if you're going to boss up, if you're going to be a goddess, then you have to talk to yourself like a goddess.
Yes. Yes.
Not like I started to talk to myself down in the laundry room today.
Right. But change starts in the awareness of actually realizing that we tend to talk to ourselves in that way.
Absolutely.
So that's the first step to changing it. Powerful. Oh my goodness.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then I would say, I'm going to go back to the toolkit. A very important part of my coping skills toolkit is my village, the people around me. Right. And knowing that I have we all have a bunch of colleagues and we call people friends and we have all this. We always have people, especially people in the public eye. We have people around us all the time.
Right.
There have to, though, be people in your life. I call them my 4 a.m. friends. You can call in 4 a.m. and say, I need you. They ask no questions. Wow. They pick up and they get to you. Or they get money out of the ATM in case it's bail that you need, whatever the case may be. Those 4 a.m. friends. But there have to be people in your life with whom you can be completely metaphorically naked, completely transparent, completely authentic. And we often don't have those people. We got a bunch of friends. We got church girlfriends, we got our sorors, we got this, and we got our, all of these people. But who are the people who you can bare your soul to and they not judge you? And they allow you to be there in that nakedness and still love you.
Wow.
You gotta have those people. You gotta have those people. And I knew who those people were in that time that I reached out to and said, I am at the lowest part in my life and I need you to buoy me up. Everyone has seen that little video. It's a little short clip of 2 guys on a basketball court. And I guess the one guy missed a shot or did something that wasn't good for the team. And he had his head down, kind of going to the other side. And his teammate lifted his head.
Oh, yes. I love that. Gives me chills.
Yeah. We got to have those people who will lift our heads when we can't do it ourselves, who will prop us up when we can't stand up, who will hold us up. That whole concept of I got your back, that really was about somebody standing at your back, to hold you because you couldn't.
Yes.
And so that was another really important, I could go on forever. That experience is still unfolding. The healing from that experience is still unfolding. Those tools are still being used. So I could go on forever, but those two are the first that come to my mind.
So these tools, Joy, are things we need to have in place before the crisis happens.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Which means, and knowing, again, I talk about old people and their sayings all the time. You're either in a storm, just out of a storm, or on your way to a storm at all times.
Wow.
And so in those, as your life ebbs and flows, you have to create that toolkit, create that village. When you don't make a friend when you need a friend. I mean, we learn that in kindergarten. You make those friends early, and then you discern who are those friends. I got different buckets of friends. I got those friends when I want to, hoop it up and holler and kiki and have cocktails and just, paint the town and go nuts and crazy. I've got those friends, right? I have those friends who, if I'm having a professional challenge in my life, who can kind of help me map that out and work my way through. I have those friends who, if I'm having relationship issues, who can kind of talk me through. And, it's important to have those friends. And again, those 4 a.m. friends.
Yes,
be completely authentic in myself. You got to have them ahead of time.
Yes.
So when you need them, you can reach out.
I love it. I love it. So Joy.
Yes.
Friends.
Yes.
Can you tell the story about when you first met me?
You love the story, don't you?
It's one of my favorite stories ever.
You love the story. And what makes it so much more fabulous is because of how our relationship is today and how much I love, admire, adore, respect you, and that we stay connected. So for your listeners, years ago now, oh my goodness, we got to do some counting to figure out how far back that was now.
I think it was 2008, and all those things you described, the feeling is mutual.
Well, thank you. And I feel that. Okay. 2008. I am at a dinner, an NAACP dinner, annual dinner in Pontiac, Michigan. I was representing my organization at the time, Oakland Primary Health Services, and we had a table and we're sitting there, and the dais is being seated, and I'm kind of looking from afar. The dais is being seated, and the keynote speaker was clear that you were the keynote speaker, and I leaned over and said to my friend, "What's the white chick doing on the stage? Like, who's the white chick? Who is she?" Again, we all have things to offer to the world. At the NAACP dinner, I just kind of wanted the speaker to be black.
Right.
And then you opened your mouth. And I could just hear, and you know how I feel about, us. I can hear the soul, and I can hear the culture, and I can hear the stories that were coming from you, and realize that in addition to being my sister of humanity, because I believe all that, you were my sister. Ooh. Yeah. And I realized just like how dope you totally were. Once you really got up there and you started doing your thing, I'm like, okay, that's a sister. Okay. So that is our story. And I love that. And of course, what did I take away from not only the fact that I have now a lifelong colleague and friend and sister, but just that my penchant toward judging a book by its cover.
Yes. That's what I love about this story. Judging a book by its cover.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what I also love about that story is that when we met many years later at an event, and I didn't know you'd had this moment, and you shared it with me, it was like, wow. And what I had done was my poem called White Chocolate, where I talk about being mixed and loving, cultivating human harmony and everything. And also President Obama was campaigning for his first term, so my speech was on that and the history and so it was such a powerful moment. And whenever I see you, it's like all of that beautiful empowerment energy is just exploding.
Thank you.
Wonderful. You're welcome.
Thank you.
So you're welcome, Joy. So thank you for sharing this story. It's just awesome.
It's one of our favorites. I know it's one of our favorites.
Yes. And now you're writing your book.
I am. And it's called One Crisis from Crazy, Finding Myself Without Losing My Mind. And it is part inspiration, it's part memoir, it's part self-help. It is just a fabulous book coach who shall remain nameless, Elizabeth Ann Atkins. And that you really need to understand the why. Why are you writing this book? You're trying to like be a millionaire, you're trying to be on TV, and I spent so much time being behind the proverbial curtain. And keeping even my loved ones outside. I don't want you close to me. I don't want you to see my flaws. I don't want you to know that I'm not perfect. I'm going to make it look as perfect as I can. And I want you to stay outside of that curtain. Many, many, many years. And there were even people that spoke into my life. Someone said years ago that, people want to hear your story. They want to hear you speak. And I remember telling her, Megan, dear friend of mine, I remember telling her, the first thing I always say in jest, I cuss too much. I can't, she was talking about being a minister. I said, I cuss too much. That was the first thing. And I said, I got stuff. And she said, that's what makes people want to listen to you, because you're not afraid to share your stuff. Because I would do it in little groups. But there was something, and I need to pinpoint it because I do want to include it in my book, when it turned for me. And when I decided that I am flawed, and yet I am still most fabulous.
Yes.
And those two things can coexist. It's the concept. I just told a group about this recently, the Japanese concept of Kintsukuroi. Kintsukuroi. And it is a concept that says that things are more beautiful after they've been broken and repaired. And so it's a concept, it's hot. I teach on this quite a bit, especially in women's retreats. We talk about, ceramic, this beautiful ceramic bowl. It's a piece of art, rare and priceless. And then it gets broken. And then there is a practice that the Japanese will put it back together, do a little Humpty Dumpty, put it back together, and then fill the cracks that remain with gold.
Ooh.
And so now this piece of art is more valuable. Wow. And it's more beautiful because of the cracks that you can see. Girl, that just gives me chills.
That is so
gives me chills. And this came to me, I was actually writing in a park. The name is going to escape me. It's one of my favorite parks, Luxembourg Gardens in Paris. Luxembourg Gardens in Paris. And it was a trip I had taken after a major, very public, very political, professional disgrace, I would call it. And I call it a failure, air quotes, because now I embrace the F word. But I was pouring out into my journal. And that's when I came across this concept. And so I'm wondering now, if that's when it turned, when I really began to be comfortable talking about my life and the things that have happened, whether they were beautiful or not. Because ultimately, as I resolve them, as I learn from them, as I share them, they become beautiful.
Yes. Wow.
Right? A story of divorce can be beautiful once you've processed it and worked it through and pulled the nuggets of gold from it and learned and use that to inform how you move forward, and use that story to share with someone who's in the throes of a divorce right now.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Wow. That is phenomenal. I can't wait to read your book, Joy. And
there's that nudge. I felt that nudge.
Well, that's my mission as a book coach, to help you bring out your powerful
Get it out of here and on the paper.
Yes, because it's going to help so many people on such a broad scale.
I believe that.
And you'll never even know who you touched with your book.
Yeah.
So you're also making a powerful impact in your current position as interim CEO of Planned Parenthood of Greater New York.
I am.
Yesterday, Texas made a ruling outlawing abortion at 6 weeks when the fetal heartbeat occurs. And the mission of many is to overturn Roe v. Wade, which would be a nightmare. So can you just talk on that a little bit, please?
Sure. And so let me start by saying that I am here as Joy D. Calloway. who happens to be the interim CEO of Planned Parenthood of Greater New York. I'm not speaking officially for Planned Parenthood of Greater New York, although my personal views align very well with Planned Parenthood of Greater New York. That said, for any of the attorneys in Zoom, right? That said, it is absolutely a travesty what Texas has done. As someone who has experienced abortion, it is not something that is decided upon willy-nilly. It is not, contrary to what the antis will say, that was not my method of birth control. It is not something that women do lightly. What it is a very personal, very emotional decision that should always be between a woman, her healthcare provider, and whatever she considers holy or not. Period. And to legislate my uterus is unacceptable. Unacceptable. Now, the minute we start legislating testicles and penises, then let's have a conversation. The minute we get to that point. But it is absolutely throwing us into the dark ages. And it's not as if we could outlaw, y'all, whomever it is, could outlaw abortion across this country. Abortions will still happen. It will go back to the pre-Roe v. Wade days, where women lost their lives because they dared to choose what to do with their own body. They dared to plan their parenthood. How dare you? How dare you? I saw a little clip recently, a couple of days ago now. It said, okay, 6 weeks is the marker. So child support starts at 6 weeks, right? So all my healthcare coverage is starting at 6 weeks, right? So if that's the marker, there's so many things that go with that our society is never going to do. So my colleagues, one of my dearest friends now in the world, and someone with whom I work down in the Gulf Coast area in Texas, she's just mortified.
But do you think it will sustain? Do you think it will make it up?
I don't know. Supreme Court is about to take on the Mississippi case. And think about it. If the Supreme Court is going to take a case, there's a ruling coming. I just said, don't have a good feeling about this. These are things that have been kicked back to lower courts in the past, but now we got Amy Coney Barrett, whatever her name is. And so now we're taking the case. It's very scary. It's very scary. And again, it's not about being anti-life. It's about being pro-choice. And then there's a whole other conversation about people who claim to be pro-life, but the other decisions they make in their lives or the other things they support are not pro-life.
Right.
So like Mississippi with the lowest education rate, don't they rank 50th in educating children? They rank
first in a lot of things like obesity rates, health
all
statistics.
Of that, and 50th in educating children, but they're saying they're pro-life. Don't get me started. I could go on and on. In my personal opinion, as Joy D. Calloway, who happens to also serve as interim CEO.
I love that. Thank you for the disclaimer. But I would like to know, what do you think we as individual women and men too, who are outraged, can do?
Absolutely. And so make your voice heard. Make your voice heard, whether it is here in Texas and let me back up. In addition to making your voice heard, elections matter. Elections matter. And so we need to be clear who we are putting in office by our votes or by our lack of voting.
Yeah.
Because every time you don't participate in an election, you participated by default.
Yes, yes.
You participated for the other side whenever you don't participate. So the first thing is we have to recognize elections matter, and we have to hold people accountable to their civic duty to vote and to participate in elections. We also have to make our voice heard so that people understand this is not okay. We can't just sit back and let this happen. And so what is the groundswell that we're doing? What's happening in Texas to overturn this? That should already be happening, whatever that is. We also need to be keeping our eye on the other country, or the other states around the country that are doing the same thing.
Right. Yeah.
Or attempting to do the same thing. And I just find it very interesting that while this wave of this legislation that is anti-choice is happening, we are also doing things to restrict voting in this country. So I just find it curious that those are two things that are happening at the same time. It's very bizarre.
It is very disturbing. So make our voices heard by writing to our legislators.
Absolutely. Write them, call them, show up at their offices, make sure you are voting, participate in elections, elect people who understand the sanctity of a woman's right to choose what to do with her life and her body and to plan her parenthood.
Yes.
That's critical. That's critical. And one thing I want to say quickly is there is a whole movement of religious leaders that support a woman's right to choose. And if you know one, if you are one, I encourage you to make your voice heard, because this is really not the religious issue that people are making it to be. Right? That's part of how people stand. But there are people who stand on this religious issue and then everything else in their life does not align with the religious beliefs that they purport.
No.
As you see, that one got me heated, that whole conversation.
It's got a lot of people heated. It's terrifying. It's like The Handmaid's Tale.
That's exactly what I was going to say. We are about to be going back in time to The Handmaid's Tale.
We cannot allow that. We have a woman vice president. We just cannot allow this.
We cannot.
We all have to speak up, stand up, protest,
boss up.
And boss up. Yes, we have to boss up.
We gotta boss up.
Not allow this Neanderthalish environment to occur or spread.
We cannot. And I'm watching our time, but I know one of the things that people forget, or either they don't know or they choose not to know, is that Planned Parenthood does so much good for people who are uninsured, who are underinsured, who are looking at that may be facing cancer. We do all kind of screening. We do STI testing. We do sexual education. There are so many things. Abortion will always be part of what Planned Parenthood does. And we need to make sure people understand all the other 80% of the work that we do that keeps. I have a friend that is alive today because she was a patient at a Planned Parenthood.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Joy. Before we go, I would like for you to please describe what you think it means to boss up, goddess.
Bossing up means knowing your power, knowing that your power is not diminished because the vicissitudes of life, I have to say that because I'm a preacher's kid, because the vicissitudes of life happen and you have moments of weakness. Bossing up means understanding that you are both fabulous and flawed. Bossing up means that you lift others with you as you climb, that I don't compete against the sister to my left or to my right. I compete with me.
Yes.
That's what bossing up means to me.
Oh, that's beautiful. Love that so much. Yeah. Joy D. Calloway, thank you so much for joining me here on the Goddess Power Show with Elizabeth Ann Atkins. You are amazing.
Thank you. It takes one to know one, girl. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Oh, wait, where can people find you, Joy?
People can find me at Joy D. Calloway on Facebook. They can find me at the Joy D on Instagram. I'm Joy D. Calloway on LinkedIn. What have I missed? I'm on Twitter too. But joydcalloway.com. Anonymous, baby. If you know my name, you can find me. If you know my name, you can find me.
I'll put the link in the description box so people can learn more, maybe invite you to speak.
I would love that.
and share your wisdom with everybody to help us all live bigger, better, and bolder.
Absolutely. I'd love that.
All right. Well, thank you again, Joy. I wish you the absolute best.
My pleasure. Good night.
Good night. And thank you, all of you, for joining us here on the Goddess Power Show with Elizabeth Ann Atkins, where I help you boss up to live bigger, better, and bolder when I interview amazing women like Joy D. Calloway. Please do hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Share this with somebody who can be inspired and learn what to do when they feel one crisis from crazy. Please follow me on Twitter at Elizabeth Atkins. And remember, boss up, goddess. You have the power.